We're live. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our final session here at Spirit of Yorkshire, the celebratory Yorkshire Day to include the Yorkshire Day Bottling 2021, which you should have heard all about by now, but we're going to taste it again at the end. This session is primarily for people who bought the tasting pack and are tasting along at home. So the three whiskies, the Flagship, the peated finish, and the Yorkshire Day 2021. But if you don't have it, don't worry, you can still join in, albeit with maybe different whiskey or whatever, but hopefully you can still enjoy the session.
A free tour, isn't it?
Absolutely. And delighted to say I'm joined here by Libby Barnby, who is brand ambassador here at Spirit of Yorkshire. Libby is going to conduct the tour. I'm going to stick my oar in now and again just to see if she knows this stuff, which I know she does, so there's no point really. But we're going to get started. We're going to do a little bit of a tasting here of the Flagship, right?
Yes.
So shall I do the honours?
Absolutely, yeah.
So do you want to maybe talk us through the Flagship while I'm pouring
Yeah,
it?
okay. So Flagship, so leading up to Flagship was our first release, which was Yorkshire's first ever single malt whiskey. And then our second release, all absolutely flew off the shelf, did the first release and the second release, which led us to Flagship, which is the cornerstone of our core range, if you'd like to call it. So it's our signature style.
Yeah.
Our go-to whiskey, almost. If it's almost like the perfect present. If someone comes in and says, you know, love someone. I've got someone who loves whiskey, and I want to give them a Yorkshire whiskey.
Yes.
Flagship is the one to go for.
That's the one.
It's as I say, it's all about our house style, nice and light, sweet and fruity. Straight away on the nose there. One of the first things, especially from the first release as well, that I got was fruit salad sweets. Do you know which ones I mean?
Yeah.
It's a real kind of sweety candy store.
Yeah.
Kind of smell there, which is great. As we've said so many times today, light and fruity.
Well, it makes your mouth water when you smell it, which
Absolutely.
for me is a really good sign of a whiskey when it does that.
I agree.
Yeah, and I totally agree with the what was the name of the sweet?
Fruit salad. Yeah, you've got it. I had to dig as well for it. I was like, what
I
was
do
it?
remember them. But yeah, like sort of pineapple chunks.
Yes.
And a bit of peaches.
Oh yeah,
and
those
nectarine.
cubes. Remember those pineapple cubes?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It's something the way that David described it. Our managing director, he mentioned it as almost like sucking on a lemon sherbet, and it's like you're going through the lemon sherbet. It's just the whiskey sitting on the tongue.
Nice.
So sweetie candy shop, anything light and fruity.
Very good. You should let them out more often.
Yeah.
Such gems like that.
But yeah, really great.
Should we have a taste? So this is matured 100% in bourbon casks, right? Ex-bourbon casks.
So 90% of Spirit of Yorkshire is bourbon. So it's like a house style that we're heading towards. We kind of went through it when we were talking about the casks session, but bourbon casks are quite easy to come by. So two bourbon distilleries, they're practically a waste product because they can never be reused by a bourbon distillery. So it means they're really good for us. And as I say, it's the style that we wanted, which just makes it even more of a better fit. So yeah, we get these bourbon casks from a distillery in Kentucky. The Old Forester Bourbon. So yeah, Old Forester were one of the first bourbon distilleries to create whiskey in the Prohibition stage in America. They were one of the early whiskies to go through the Prohibition station in America for medicinal reasons, apparently. So they've been doing it for an awful long time and know their stuff. And you can tell that it's good whiskey. If you haven't tried Old Forester, I definitely recommend grabbing a bottle of Old Forester.
Good recommendation.
Yeah, definitely.
So when in the day would you reach for the Flagship, apart from
So
any time
I've
of day?
always explained Flagship as a school night whiskey.
Yeah.
This is middle of a tough week, a Wednesday night dram.
Wednesday night dram.
Your easy go-to. is Flagship. I'd say personally, it's just something that's easy to enjoy. Also great for the whiskey beginners, like Amy mentioned on the last talk. It's something that, especially a lot of people my age, friends of mine and stuff that don't know whiskey, I'll take them to Flagship because it's really easy to, it just sits on the tongue really well, and can lead you into a way of that you like light and fruity whiskies if you like Flagship, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it does. Apart from the bit where you said people your age, I mean, how do you know I'm not your age? Frankly, I don't know what gives that away.
A lot of people my age drink whiskey like tequila, and just like to. So a lot of my friends will go, whiskey, and I'm like, wait till I try whiskey with you.
And do you have success with that?
Yeah, I've actually converted my dad. My dad was very much a cider through and through.
He's not your age.
No, I suppose not. But converted my dad, and yes, I have converted a few friends actually. A friend of mine, he's got pretty much every release. Moscatel is one of his favourites. I think we spent a night pretty drunk in my house going through second release. So yeah, I've done quite well with my friends.
Good.
Going on to whiskey side.
Long may that continue.
Yes.
So how long have you worked for Spirit of Yorkshire?
So I started working. It's actually pretty much almost a year. 2 weeks ago, 3 years, 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So I was saying to Joe and India as we were starting to, get ready for this virtual open day, that the first open day that we had, I was absolutely buzzing because I'd only been here a couple of weeks and they'd put me in charge of the shop. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am the face that people see as soon as they come in. That's such a big deal.
Absolutely.
And 3 years later, I'm running the thing. So, I must have done something right.
For sure. Well, as I said earlier on, it's a lovely team here, and you'll genuinely get on, and you can feel it when you come. It's a lovely atmosphere when you come in.
Atmosphere is amazing. As I say, we're all very, very lucky. Again, like Amy said, David and Joe are just absolute pleasure to work with. Everyone is the girls in the cafe, Jenny. I've learned so much, not just about whiskey, but about being an upcoming business as well. It's really, really amazing place to be in, especially for, as I say, someone my age, starting quite young within the whiskey industry. Yeah. I can just be a sponge and just get everything in as much as I can. And to be fair, something that helped me along the way is the Whiskey Lounge festivals. It's one of the things that I learn a lot from, is just being there and tasting with different people. It's
that's great.
That's good to hear.
Obviously, we're hoping to restart doing those in a few months' time.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. Exactly.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we're going to start the tour shortly, the live virtual tour, if that makes sense. But before that, we've got a little video to play for you, which just explains the field to bottle process from the field, but leading up to everything apart from distillation, maturation. So it explains how it gets to here in its liquid form. So, Joe, are you ready to play that video? And here we go. We'll see you back here soon.
My grandfather bought the farm at the end of the Second World War and farmed it until the late 50s. My dad took over from him, farmed it till the mid-80s, and I really have taken it over from that point. It's a traditional Yorkshire arable farm, high on the Yorkshire Wolds, and in the late 1990s, early 2000s, we were not making very much money from doing our traditional growing of oilseed rape, wheat and barley. So we had, like everybody else in the country, to start to look to move the business in a different direction. I looked at the resources that we had on the farm at that particular point, and the two main ones that struck me were the fact that we had our own water supply, and the other thing is that we grow a lot of malting barley. So I put the two and two together and came up with the idea of brewing and did some research into that and decided that that would be a way forward for us on our particular farm. So in 2003 we set up the Waltop Brewery, and that's continued to grow over the last 15, 16 years. In 2011 and 12 it seemed like a logical progression that we could make a whisky, because the first part of the brewing process and the first part of the whisky making process are identical. Having explored that, it then needed putting into practice, and if I'd not gone and done that, then I'd have gone to my grave regretting it.
Tom and I have been friends for many years. We've played rugby together, we've seen our families grow up together. So Tom approached me with an idea of making Yorkshire's first single malt whisky. I thought it was a fantastic idea and couldn't wait to get involved with him. So we looked into the production of whisky around the country, and it was evidence that it had never been made in Yorkshire before, which is very unusual, as we have some of the best malting barley growing land in the area. And it just made absolute sense to use the resources local to us to produce something completely unique. The next step for us really was to develop a brand behind the story, and as we are based only 10 minutes down the road from the biggest gannet colony in the UK, we felt we wanted to use the gannet as our mascot, as it represents a lot that we're doing at the business. It's very tenacious, it's very graceful, and it's full of spirit, so we felt that represented us very well.
The Yorkshire Wolds is a great area for growing malting barley. It's got thin calcareous soils, which barley likes. Barley does not like big, heavy land. We also have a fantastic water supply as well, which comes from the chalk aquifers under the farm. The farm doesn't actually have mains water. And the one thing about this water is that it's very, very consistent, which is one of the reasons why we think our beer has been so consistent over the last 18 years.
So the first part of making a whisky is actually making something that resembles beer, which is called wash. We do that by using the barley from the farm and sending it down to Munton's malting factory at Bridlington. That comes back to us as a malted barley, and we then steep that barley in hot water and make a very sticky, sugary solution. From that we add the yeast and we start to produce alcohol. Once we've got this sugary solution and it's turned into alcohol, we end up with an 8% alcohol wash. This is the product we put into the copper stills, and this is the stuff that we start to make the whisky from.
Well, we're incredibly proud that we are a fully fledged field-to-bottle distillery. We've got absolutely everything that we need here on the Yorkshire Wolds for making an excellent whisky. One of the things that's really important to us is knowing exactly that it's our barley that goes into our bottle. What that also does is it gives us a degree of consistency that a lot of small brewers and distillers wouldn't have, because our malt is effectively one big batch.
There's only a handful of distilleries around the world that could claim to be fully field-to-bottle producers. That gives us great traceability. You can rewind that liquid back into a field, which I find very fascinating and a great story.
The sustainability of the farm is really important to us, and that's what underpins everything that we do. It was the reason why we started brewing in the first place, was to make sure that the farm could continue and could be a legacy for the future. One of the things we're trialling this year is direct drilling, which means basically you don't disturb the soil when you plant the next crop. The current thinking, and it's been shown by various different research bodies, that by ploughing the land we are releasing a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, which doesn't really need to be released. Our responsibilities as a land user are to make sure that we don't take too much out of the soil or the land and leave not enough for the future. So it's trying to really safeguard future years with the best current thinking.
You don't get many chances to produce something that's completely unique, and whisky in Yorkshire is one of them. You only get the chance to release first Yorkshire whisky once, and we felt, Tom and I together, wanted that opportunity to do something completely different. So we chose the name Filey Bay for our first single malt whisky, as we can see Filey Bay from our distillery. It made absolute sense to use the area, as we love the coast, we love the sea, it's ever changing, and Filey Bay represents everything we are at this distillery. The next step for us really was to develop a brand, and what we didn't want to do was just copy somebody else's idea of what whisky should be. So we developed a brand which stood out, which was different, which was fresh. Again, using all the assets of the area and everything that we felt was good about the area. And we hope we've put that into the bottle, we've put that into the label, and everybody involved in the business has put everything into what we've produced. So we feel that we've produced a brand that is completely different and unique. First and foremost, we set up the Spirit of Yorkshire to make the best possible whisky we could. But then, of course, we needed to share that. So to do that, we set up the visitor centre and the coffee shop. That is very important to us, that it's not just about the production, but it's also about the people. So thank you for coming to the Spirit of Yorkshire and sharing our journey. I hope you enjoy the rest of your tour and take away a part of Yorkshire which is completely unique.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. Gives you a good insight into what happens before this point when we get to the distillery, right?
Yes.
And now Libby is going to take us around to show us the beautiful site of the stills that you can see behind us.
Yep.
And yeah, and then we'll do more tasting as well. Let's go, Jonathan. Feel like Annika Rice.
Love
I feel
that.
her age anyway. Right.
So,
Look at this.
the copper stills, some of the largest copper stills outside of Scotland within the UK. So we've got our wash still, we've got our spirit still. So these were made by a company called Forester, who of course are a Scottish company. They are the best of the best, the Rolls Royce, if you'd like to call them, of the pot still making world. So shape and size is done specifically for us. The taller the still, the lighter the spirit. So you'll see this big boil ball here. So this adds an extra 0.5 metre or so in copper contact. So if you look at copper underneath a microscope, it looks a little bit like a Brillo pad. And what that Brillo pad's doing is it's scratching out the impurities of that 8% wash that David was just talking about on the video. So it's scratching out all those impurities to create, well, get rid of them basically, because we want those light and fruity flavours coming through, and that's how we get those, is by the copper removing the impurities that we don't want, basically. So yeah, what happens is it's all very Yorkshire-like, of course. The wash comes down from the farm on the back of a tractor, and it comes through the fire escape, very classy, and hits the wash receiver at the back there. So we get a batch of 10,000 litres of wash on a Monday and a Thursday morning. So we're currently only still 4 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So the 5,000 litres of wash will go straight into the wash still. Now, some of the differences that we have compared to the traditional whisky distillery setup is that our fermentation time is a little bit different. So the wash that's going into here is about 75 hours that's fermented for. And then obviously Tuesday's wash is just going to sit in that wash receiver until Tuesday. So that's about 95 hours of fermentation time. In Scotland, you traditionally find about 55 hours. So we're just fermenting for that little bit longer as we use 2 different types of yeast. So one yeast is all about the activation, and the second is all about the flavour. So that extra time, as I say, just allows them to work together a bit more for us to get the perfect wash that we'd like. So yeah, it's in still. We've put the lid on. We've put tightened the lid up, and at the bottom of the still, we have some like a coil that is filled with steam. We have an oil generator out the back of the distillery that creates the steam that gets pushed around this coil, just like a kettle. Basically it will start to boil. We have this little thermometer just here. So a bit of a science lesson for you. Obviously, alcohol has a lower boiling point than water. So the alcohol will start to come out first. So what happens is you've got to have eyes like a hawk to watch this as it's starting to boil. As the alcohol is coming up, starting to boil, should I say, you'll get like little bubbles just in this little window here. Just at the back of that window, we've got a little light that shines through. So it's a great little technique that we have to literally just be sat on a chair, looking through that window, all very manual, messing with this, as Eddie said, very Yorkshire style.
Yorkshire computer.
Little dial, we'd like to call it. So we're turning up the steam. So it's starting to bubble around about, we did get this temperature, I think it's about 85. I think it starts to bubble around about 92. So we'll get up to about 92, and as bubbles come up, we want to turn the temperature down. The way I describe this is a little bit like your pan of pasta. You're boiling a pan of pasta at home, you've forgotten about it, you come back to it, and it's overboiling. If this overboiled and started to go up to the swan neck and hit the condenser, red flag, we do not want that to happen. Red flag, bad. So this is much more of a cleanup than your cooker at home. So just like your pan of pasta, as I say, we turn the temperature down so that the bubbles start to come down, and we basically just mess around with it for about half an hour, and we let those bubbles rise and fall until we're happy with it, just like your pan of pasta, bubbling away nicely at home. We're happy with it, and then what starts to happen is the alcohol will start to rise up along the copper, go along the swan neck, down this line arm, and hit a condenser. Now, in this condenser, there are lots of little tubes filled with cold water. That vapour will hit those tubes and come into the spirit safe. Now, for the spirit safe, this first little bowl that we have is the low wines. So the low wines is the products that we're getting from the wash that's now being distilled. So from the 8% alcohol that we had, we now have 25% alcohol. From the 5,000 litres that we had, we now only have 1,700. So it's gone down quite a lot. We've got rid of a lot of water there, which is great. 25% alcohol is nowhere near the alcohol percentage that we need. Little question for you, Eddie. Of course, you'll know this. What's the lowest alcohol percentage that a whiskey can be?
Well, 40%.
40%. So you've got no chance. With 25. So the 25% low wines has to go through a second distillation, which is the spirit still. I'll come around here for you, Jonathan. So our spirit still, you can see it's slightly different in shape. So the wash still is all about getting those impurities out, whereas the spirit still is all about flavour. For example, at the end of every distillation, the wash still is rinsed out with cold water, just to get rid of all the dead yeast and things like that, which can then be reused on the farm for, I know this is fermentation, that's not the right word, fertilisation or fertiliser. There we go. Whereas this spirit still has never been washed out, as every distillation is adding characteristic to our spirit. That's the right word. But anyway, exact same process. We're literally just pushing those low wines through the spirit still. Got a big steam coil at the bottom. We're heating it up. We don't have to keep an eye on this one as much because, as I say, we've kind of got rid of those harsh impurities now. We're all just about flavour. So again, the flavours are coming up along the swan neck, down the line arm, hit another condenser on this side, and comes back into the spirit safe. So within the spirit safe, we now have two bowls. We've got the left bowl and the right bowl. The left bowl is our foreshots and feints, and the right bowl is our middle cut. The slightly fancier or nicer ways, or should we say romantic ways of saying them are the heads, the heart, and the tails. So the first start of the run is basically just getting rid of the last distillation that was in the spirit still, and getting rid of the really, really sweet flavours. Anything a bit too sweet that we just don't quite want going into our middle cup. So it can literally take a matter of seconds for that to flick into the middle cup. How we do that is we will measure the alcohol percentage and temperature, and we will simply grab a glass, flick a bit of spirit in, have a sniff, maybe dip a finger in, depending on how bad your morning's gone, and have a little taste, and just to see where that middle cut is at. And as soon as our distiller is happy with it, Dom, like in the one of the previous sessions, he'll just flick that over, and we've gone into the middle cut, which, as you said, is roughly about 75% alcohol. So before I go on to the column, should we have a whiskey? Because it's been about 5 minutes since the last one. So
Exactly.
and we're on the last session of the day, so we're all on the whiskey now.
So what are we tasting?
So now we are tasting the peated finish, Riley Bay peated finish. So this is one of our latest releases alongside the Yorkshire Day 2021. And so this is primarily matured in bourbon. Yeah. Secondary maturation in a peated cask from a filtered bottle distillery in Islay. So very similar process to us. If you have a little sniff, you can really kind of sense that it's still Filey Bay in there with a slight peated, smoky edge.
You still get those lovely fruitiness.
Exactly, yeah. I think
fruit salad.
Me personally, I'm not a massive peated whiskey fan, but as we, Joe and myself, were typing up the blog for this peated finish whiskey, we were sat having a dram, and it quickly became my favourite.
There you go.
It's really, I think for me personally, it's really sweet, easy to drink, not overpowering, which is something that a few customers have kind of mentioned, that it's not a peated whiskey like they'd expect it to be, you know, which isn't what we were trying to do. You know, we were trying to create Filey beer with a peated finish.
Yeah,
you know, so it's just got that, exactly, just a slight twist there. Yeah. What were your first impressions to it?
Pretty much the same. I think, you know, you still get the lovely fruitiness, the complexity, and the softness of the spirit, but you just get a little bit of a twist of smoke, which just adds a little extra dimension to it. It doesn't overtake or overbear.
Absolutely,
you know, compared to, you know, a much more heavily peated spirit. So it's just a nice twist on a successful formula. Really.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. Like just there, when I just tasted it, then straight away I didn't get any smoke, and then I breathed in, and that's where the smoke hit the back of my throat, and got that kind of peat there.
Well, a little tip actually, with any smoky whiskey, peated whiskey, add a little bit of water. It emphasizes the smoke.
Oh, right, okay.
So if you are a smoke fan, or peat fan, then that's water, for me, is the water is your friend.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it must be just the way the phenols react to the water. But it's just something I've discovered over many years of abuse. I mean, tasting. You know? So yeah,
it's a good. Should we try that? Should we try a bit of water?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
If I can add a little bit. Add a little bit.
You might need a bit more.
Okay.
Try that.
I think actually, yeah, you might be right. It has given a bit of more of a smoky smell there.
I mean,
it's not taking the sweetness away, though.
No, absolutely not. But the fruits become more citrusy than it perhaps was.
Oh my gosh,
before.
yeah, you're not lying. There is definitely more peat on the tongue there.
You see, I've learned a thing or two.
Who knew you actually know your stuff? Oh, that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Something that I learned from Joe, actually, is a bit of a magic trick with the peated. If you pour a little bit on your hand and just rub them together until it's dry, and you smell, you get that peat quite strong. Whereas when you're tasting it, personally for me, you don't get the peat, but there, the peat really comes through.
You get the peated barley. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Cool. Have we got any questions, or are we all good? No questions. Okay, so we're obviously answering them all.
Yeah, exactly. No, I notice apart from the pot stills that there's a cheeky
column.
little thing behind you there.
Yes. So,
Tell us what that's all about.
so this here is our rectifying column, not to be mistaken for a column still, because it works in tandem with the spirit still, not by itself. So what happens is 50% of our production, 50% of our production is just the pot stills. The other 50% is the rectifying column. Half of our casks are filled with pot spirit, and the other half of our casks are filled with column spirit. Now, the way that we use this, the first part of the process is the exact same. It runs through the wash still and through the spirit still. Now, before it hits this condenser, what happens is we don't break any health and safety laws. We employ Spider-Man to come and get this black lever and pull that black lever down, and the blue lever comes along to be in line with this silver pipe here, so that the vapour is redirected down the silver pipe and hits the bottom of the column, just in this little window here. So what happens is, I don't know if you can see the ridges in between each little window, but what happens is the vapour will come through this first little window, go up through this little ridge, which is basically just a copper plate that has lots of little holes in it. The vapour will rise up through that copper plate and just keep on going until it hits the top of the column, which is a little condenser. And then all of a sudden, it will turn into torrential rain. It's quite fun to watch. I'm pretty sure somewhere deep in our Facebook and Instagram, there is a video of the column live, which is just raining down. It's really great to see. Or you can come and see us on a tour, and you can potentially even see it running live as we're talking about it through the tour. But yeah, so basically what happens is, as it's going through these little copper plates, like I mentioned, that copper is acting as a briller pad and just scratching more impurities out. So as it's getting up the column, it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Now, once it's light enough, it'll fall over to the left, and it'll come through to hit this condenser again and come back into the spirit safe. Again, you get your 4 shots, your middle cut, and your feints. Now, the middle cut that you're getting from this column still is coming out at about 85% alcohol, so it has gone up that extra bit. I think the highest we've ever got it was around about 92, which was a good day at work. But anyway, so once it's, if it's not quite light enough, and as I say, it's raining down, what will happen, this is the part that makes our process so unique, is once it's hit the bottom, it'll go along this little arm, go back into the spirit still, go up and along and around again. So it just works in one big circle. They work in tandem with each other. So it's literally just this little arm here that makes us completely different.
It's all fully controllable, so you can decide when to use it, when not to
Absolutely,
use it.
yeah. So it's literally just those
levers up
levers up there that can decide when to use it and when not to use it. For example, when we do have the column still on, we don't need to use the column for the feints. So we'll turn the column off as the feints are coming through, because they're just going to get pushed through again, which I haven't mentioned actually. So the 4 shots and feints and the low lines, what happens to those is they go into these tanks here. If you follow the pipes in the distillery, you normally find where you're going. They get brought together in the spirit still, and we'll just go through again. So for example, Monday's low wines and 4 shots and feints will be Tuesday's spirit run. So yes.
So it all gets used.
All gets used, yeah.
No waste.
Amy said in the last tour we're quite green as a distillery. I think most distilleries nowadays are quite green.
Yeah.
We like to reuse as much as we can. Nothing's really wasted, which is really good. So yes.
Wonderful.
Cool. So that's the column.
Great.
Should we head down for... Oh, we have a question.
We have a question, apparently. What's the question? Is that a question, or did you just come up with that? Where did Eddie get his shirt
See, can I just say that throughout the entire day, I didn't make any stupid questions, and now that Joe's in charge,
Gap, I think is the answer. You saw the,
the
label,
question
David.
was,
Anyway,
where did Eddie's
you
shirt
pulled the
come
label
from?
off.
There we are.
People seem to like
The latest fashion, obviously. It's called fashion, Joe. Look
this.
it up.
This is as good as it gets for me. I can tell you. I'll be changing into a t-shirt in a minute. So we've got this Yorkshire Day.
Yorkshire Day, yes, the star of the day, isn't it?
The start of the day.
Certainly is.
Seems to have gone down. It was full when
Must
it
have
started.
enjoyed it. Okay, cool. So I think we're going to get Amy and David to join us. We're great,
Okay.
we're back live.
Sorry about that.
Yes, so
little
the
technical
camera's a bit
hitch.
tired.
Yeah. The day's taken its toll on all of us. Okay, so yes, tell us a bit about the Yorkshire Day bottling, and what's
Okay.
what's
Yes,
different
so
about it.
Yorkshire Day is in fact our latest release, of course. We released it a little bit earlier than what we normally would do, which is of course Yorkshire Day, which is tomorrow, because we wanted our lovely customers to be able to enjoy it with us today for our virtual open day.
Mm-hmm.
This was originally matured in bourbon, and then no, that's a lie. There's some bourbon casks in there, and then there's some Oloroso sherry casks in there.
So they're vatted as opposed to it being finished.
Yes, so it's a marriage of casks, which is very similar to
Full term.
yes. So yeah, we've got the Oloroso cask as an example here. And then we've got the bourbon cask as an example there.
As modelled by my shirt. I'm just
You're
a
matching. I've not
I'm
even
just a
realised the
passenger.
shirt's matching.
With what? Oh, it is a bit, isn't it?
Anyways, yeah. So
it's a combination of those
combination,
two.
yes.
Right.
So yeah, 55%. So it's slightly higher than our normal releases of 46%. Reason for that, I suppose, with the first Yorkshire Day, when Yorkshire Day 2020, when Joe was first putting it together, he found that it just sat better at 55. It was really holding itself at 55. And I suppose this one has just done the exact same, which is great.
So it's not just because he prefers stronger alcohol.
No, well, I suppose, Yorkshire Day, I think, is meant to be a bit more of a special release.
Yeah.
So if it helps you get a little bit more relaxed quicker, like the way I use relax there rather than drunk. But yeah, cool. So,
okay, well, I think we're going to bring in David and Amy, who've been working hard today as well.
So we can all enjoy a dram together.
So we can all
imagine
in a Yorkshire accent. Slanger.
So imagine this is the first time you're drinking Yorkshire Day. What is the first impression you get?
Colour to start.
No,
Colour?
the colour's stunning.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's a long way away from our Flagship.
Absolutely.
It's the other end of the scale. And,
Proper whiskey colour.
Proper whiskey.
proper whiskey, as our cameraman said. But yeah, so
That's
colour was my
amazing,
first
isn't it?
impression, and then just the nose is just stunning, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of fruit, dried fruit, showing.
It doesn't hold back, does it?
It's all there.
No, definitely.
It's not a shy, retiring type.
Not like me.
No, it's not like.
But yeah, it's I think it's spot on.
The longer that you hold it on the tongue, the more fruitcake that you get.
It does, yeah.
You get the marzipan,
Yeah, you do, yeah.
and
it
then
goes into the
absolutely,
cakiness, definitely.
yeah.
No, if you like that really forward sherry cask style, really, really heavy on the dried fruits and spice, then you'll absolutely love it.
As I say, I think customers have really enjoyed this one. There's a few fans of ours that have really said that this is really competing against 2020. 2021's just a bit. But I suppose, as it gets older, as we go over the Yorkshire days, of course, that's going to happen. Because our flavours really do
Inevitable
start coming through.
comparisons. Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't disappear.
No,
It lingers.
absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of young whiskies.
It's true, actually. Yeah, it's got a long
stays with
finish.
you, a long finish.
Yeah, well,
And it's
as we
not
say,
too dry.
some of our oldest stuff is this, isn't
Yeah.
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
If 5 years of whiskey is old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done, guys.
Thank you very much.
Great job on that.
And thank you for hosting today.
Oh, it's my
Brilliant.
it's my
Yeah, it's been
pleasure.
amazing. It's fabulous.
It's not never a
it's gone
chore.
really well.
Thank you too. And
We've had a few blips, haven't we? But we've done pretty well.
Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't get Joe down here.
Yeah. Well, we were planning on getting Joe down here, and he was like, "That's fine." So I think he's had enough video for one day.
thanks for jumping.
Yeah.
Oh yes, thank you very
well
much,
done,
Jonathan. Jonathan's been amazing.
Patience
really
of a saint.
Yeah.
We'll put a link on Jonathan's website or our website, Jonathan. If you need
Yes.
sort of
This,
quality
yeah.
of output,
absolutely.
If you ever need a what
We
was
don't
it,
come with
Saturday
that,
kitchen,
That's the kitchen,
making cocktails or.
Good to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Yeah, we hope you've enjoyed it. It's been good fun. Yorkshire Day has been enjoyed massively throughout the day. We've all been sipping.
Yeah.
But yes, I think we've done well.
Yeah.
So, well done, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cheers everyone at
See you
home.
next year.
See you next year.
Hopefully in person.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Cheers.
Thanks
Cheers.
very much.
Cheers everyone.
Bye.